Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. A source at the Polish Foreign Ministry has told TVP World that a Russian shadow fleet ship has been spotted circling around the Baltic Pipeline that delivers Norwegian gas to Poland. Meanwhile, in response to increased sabotage activity in the Baltic Sea, Poland has committed 4 vessels to the NATO Baltic Policing Force. These new developments come as a NATO Baltic Sea summit is taking place in Helsinki, Finland. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte and the leaders of Poland and several other European nations are taking part in the summit, which will discuss European maritime security. In recent months, the Baltic Sea has become an arena for Russia's hybrid war against the West, with various underwater telecom cables and gas pipelines experiencing sabotage attempts. NATO has responded to safeguarding critical infrastructure, but more must be done, said Secretary-General Mark Rutte on Tuesday at the Baltic Sea NATO country summit in Helsinki, right before he announced the launch of a new NATO initiative called Baltic Sentry.
Today, I can announce that NATO is launching Baltic Sentry. Under the authority of NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, General Kristersson, this military activity is part of our ongoing effort to enhance maritime presence and monitoring of key areas for our alliance. It will involve a range of assets, including frigates and maritime patrol aircraft, among others, and will enhance our vigilance in the Baltic.
Latvian President Egers Rinkēvičs stated that the new NATO Baltic mission should be reinforced with additional sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet. Latvia is actively participating in the alliance's new patrol mission, which is being discussed at the NATO Baltic Sea summit in Helsinki.
We need to have very tough countermeasures against the recent accidents. Latvia very much supports increased NATO patrolling. Latvia very much supports also more robust sanctioning of the Russian shadow fleet, more EU-NATO cooperation. And of course, we are also ready, and we have announced our contribution to the common mission. We will be sending 1 patrol boat and, of course, increasing the protection of the undersea infrastructure that we are responsible for. However, I think that we need to be prepared for further incidents like we have seen, and we need to respond currently boldly, otherwise we will be seeing even more increased accidents here.
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen stated on Tuesday, quote, "We will not accept any acts of sabotage." Frederiksen is attending the Baltic Sea NATO country summit, which comes in the wake of recent suspected acts of sabotage at sea.
First of all, there are all the technical stuff and all the technical details on the cables and our critical infrastructure. We have to deepen our cooperation on that perspective, and at the same time, to be very direct to other countries that we will not accept any kind of sabotage. We will not accept any kind of attacks against our societies, and therefore the presence of NATO in the Baltic Sea is extremely important.
On his way to the Baltic NATO summit in Helsinki, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that the leaders there will discuss ways to improve security on the Baltic Sea with the NATO Secretary-General. Now, the need for this dialogue was made even more urgent after the recent alleged sabotage attacks, which have damaged underwater infrastructure in the region.
We have proposed reinforced patrols in the Baltic Sea, somewhat along the lines of air policing, which is patrolling the airspace over Poland and other NATO countries located near Russia. It is really about deterrence, but also effectively monitoring who is entering the Baltic Sea, with what and whether they pose a threat. Today there will finally be a meeting with the participation of the NATO Secretary-General at the invitation of the President of Finland, where we will talk about practical actions to secure the Baltic Sea from what's most likely Russian sabotage.
According to reports, Monday evening marked the largest attack by Ukrainian Armed Forces on Russian targets this year. Drone strikes were launched in multiple regions across Russia, reportedly targeting industrial facilities such as oil refineries and chemical plants. Following the attacks, restrictions were imposed at several Russian airports. Russian media claims that around 200 drones were used in the assaults. Meanwhile, in the early hours of Tuesday, Kyiv's air defense systems were activated as Russia carried out a drone attack on the Ukrainian capital. Ten EU countries are advocating for a ban on Russian liquefied natural gas. Poland, currently holding the presidency of the Council of the European Union, is among them. The participating EU nations aim to close existing loopholes and cut off Russia's ability to profit from LNG sales to Europe. However, the initiative is likely to face opposition from Slovakia and Hungary, two EU members that support continued trade with Moscow. Since the start of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Russia has reportedly earned 200 billion euros from oil and gas sales to the EU. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius made a surprise visit to Kyiv on Tuesday, following his attendance at the Big Five meeting in Warsaw, where the Polish defense minister hosted his German, French, Italian, and UK counterparts. The German defense minister is expected to meet with Ukrainian officials to discuss aid for Ukraine and assess the country's current military situation. Pistorius traveled to Kyiv after the defense ministers' meeting in Warsaw, where he and his counterparts discussed continued support for Ukraine and cooperation on European security initiatives. Former Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki is expected to become the new chairman of the European Conservatives and Reformist Party on Tuesday. The party is set to elect a new leader to succeed its current head, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Mateusz Morawiecki led Poland's conservative Law and Justice government from 2017 to 2023. He's an economist with a background in banking. The ECR is the fourth largest party in the European Parliament, with members including Brothers of Italy, Poland's Law and Justice Party, the Czech Civic Democratic Party, and the Sweden Democrats. Polish tennis player Hubert Hurkacz has advanced to the second round of the Australian Open after defeating the Dutchman Talan Griekspoor in straight sets. Currently ranked 17th in the world, Hubert Hurkacz faces the Talon Griekspoor, ranked 40th. A previous matchup between the two had been closely contested, but this time the Pole secured a decisive victory, winning 7-5, 6-4, 6-4. In the next round of the prestigious Australian Open, Hurkacz will take on Siberian player Milomir Kecmanovic. And that concludes this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.